Do you want to see humanity fall apart? Then go to Twitter, and stab your fucking heart. After 2 installments of the Twitter Rant series, and after continuous shit we've heard from people like Charlie, aka Moist Critical, and Munahar, we all know by now that Twitter is one of, if not the worst, active social media platform on the internet. And me just taking a more serious shit on Twitter because I have no life! Now, Twitter mostly gets known for either posting the most dumbest shit you'll ever see in your life, or just in general spread toxicity towards something, yada yada yada. And while that is something we already experienced millions of times, there's also other really dumb shit when it comes towards certain categories, such as what we're gonna be talking about today, Twitter artists. I mainly say Twitter artists because I'm talking specifically about the ones that act like your average Twitter user, or the ones that say the most dumbest shit to defend themselves about their controversial drawing. The art group that I'm showing in this video are used as an example of the certain issues with the Twitter artist community, and also calling out some people because they really should be stopped. Now let's get started. Usually in these episodes I fully address the topic straight to the point, but with a certain category like art itself, we're having different sorts of problems. So let's get straight to the most known art problem, which we all know by now: tracing and editing someone's art. Tracing is your basic artist problem. Usually you should never judge someone for the line art itself, only for what the drawing is about. But when it comes to tracing, the line art can be judged because it's basically stolen art. Tracing is not necessarily really horrible. In fact, it's actually really helpful with learning things like anatomy, blood texture, etc. However, when you keep doing it, posting it online with no credit whatsoever, not only are you stealing someone's art and drawing off of it, but you're also not improving. Now, a lot of artists use these methods by tracing women drawings or IRL pictures to get attention. Which brings us to the next issue. Number 2, attention seeking. The name pretty much says it all. Basically a person that tries to get attention from people's work, or in general just doing dumb shit to get people to notice them because they're in such a fucking brain dead community. Grains art community. For this, I'm gonna be using an example of an artist named M. Grace and an artist named Toby. Toby is someone who traces art and gets attention for it because the community where he draws the art in is too dumb to notice such a thing. Like literally everything he does is trace. Here's a crystal clear example of him tracing. And people have called this individual out several times for their atrocious behavior. Now, where did he get all this attention from? M. Grace, of course, who also traces and attention seeks by drawing fictional women. Now, M. Grace once got exposed or called out for tracing a drawing from a popular artist called GeoEXE. Instead of making a quick apology on her traced art, or at least admitting to tracing, she disables her account and comes back a couple of hours later, and after some people called out M. Grace for her tracing, the art group tried to death threaten someone for it and attack people who would respond and agree with the exposers, or just being completely mad about it. Here's some of the traced art pieces. One of them is NSFW, which I unfortunately can't show because I don't want this video to get taken down because of showing explicit content. But this is most I have. And now we've come to probably the last issue I know of Twitter artists, and that is number 3, NSFW art, adult content in general, artists' actual true self, etc. If you are a well-aware artist, you know that NSFW art is just one of the most problematic sort of art you can draw. It's just true. I'm not even being sarcastic here or just saying this is my opinion. It's just true. And now I'm gonna give you one very serious advice that you all should please understand and follow. If you are a minor and are under the age of 18 years old, doesn't matter if it's close or not, do not draw NSFW art or get involved with NSFW artists in general. I can't believe that some people in the Twitter art community still can't follow something as simple as not making NSFW content when they are clearly a minor. Making private accounts for it doesn't help you much either, because number 1, there's still minors following you, and yet you still choose to tell it on your main that you're gonna make a quote-unquote private account. And number 2, we will still clearly know that you post that stuff online. Just keep it a private thing, it's not that hard. Now, a good example for this sort of behavior is a 16 to 17-year-old artist in the art group named Texo, who drew a mildly suggestive art about his female OC in an overly sexual perspective. Now, Texo wrote under that drawing if people want him to draw NSFW of that character. Texo basically doesn't care if he's 18 or not, and yet still chooses to make the decision of asking his own fan base of horny children if he should draw NSFW art or not, when he clearly shouldn't. Now, thankfully, a lot of people told him to not draw that sorts of art around that age, which is good. But then a couple of months later, he starts a Pixiv and a Twitter NSFW account where he posts his NSFW content publicly. This is not meant to be rude, but please just keep your NSFW content off of the internet and show it privately to other people. You are a minor. But that's not even the worst part. It's minors involving NSFW art. Now, this is the part of the video where it gets a little dark, so if you do not want to hear about topics like lolicons and such, skip to this part of the video. Now, there are 2 certain individuals in the art group named Insane Okami and Komaru. Insane Okami drew lolly porn and looted a minor's OC without permission, and even if it was permission, he shouldn't draw it in the first place. For those of you that don't know, lolly porn is sexual content involving anime/fictional children. If you want to draw NSFW fan art, have common sense and don't loot characters from minors like this person does. And the artist named Komaru allows a minor to view their NSFW art, which is also partly lolly porn. Both having sexual interactions on Twitter and being involved into really disgusting shit. Now, Komaru defends this by saying the most original sort of response that any sort of lolicon would give: it's fictional, it's not real child porn. The fact that you compare a children's case in the real world to you liking fictional children being looted clearly goes to show that you do not know what you're talking about, and you just try to defend yourself by not coming off like a creep, when you clearly are coming off like a creep with the art that you're drawing. Yes, child porn is way worse than anything in terms of art. However, that does not change the fact that you proportionally drew a child in sexual intercourse, and then 2 months later, literally throwing away her own argument of defending lolly porn, and then saying, I can draw whatever I want. These 4 memes destroy your entire argument of defending your porn addiction towards fictional children. And you can't call it your interest either. Because if you say lolly porn is your interest, you just come off like the creepiest motherfucker ever. Now, what have we learned through this? Well, first off, don't interact with any sort of NSFW content if you are under the age of 18. I think that's pretty clear. Second off, don't draw NSFW fan art of people without permission, and definitely not if they're a minor. And third off, lolly porn is not something you can defend. It is deplorable, disgusting shit when you proportionally draw children in sexual activities. And last but not least, I want to give some honorable mentions that I've noticed about Twitter artists. One being Twitter art trends, aka drawing my hot female OC in revealing clothing. You'd expect some actual cool stuff from the word art trends, but no, most of the Twitter art trends that you see are women in a sexual scenario, whether it be a revealing suit or a shitty pose. Every artist who does these trends are mostly there for the clout more than anything. And finally, seasonal art. Ah yes, it's that time of the year again. Easter, Halloween, Christmas. Now what should I draw for this important time in the year? Oh, for fuck's sake. Listen, I can understand an NSFW artist drawing this sorts of stuff because, well, that's what they do. But if you really want to celebrate something like Easter with art, don't draw your female OC in a bunny suit and instead draw like you in a bunny costume hunting for eggs, Jesus on a cross, anything that has to actually do with the season itself. You realize that this just defeats the purpose of actually celebrating the season, right? I mean, draw whatever the fuck you want, but don't say you didn't draw it for the clout or think that it's not sexual, because it clearly is, and you're clearly drawing it for that purpose. In conclusion, the Twitter art community is more problematic than you think. If you'd maybe want to become a good artist or try to help out the Twitter art community to get a better reputation, I'd suggest you to follow these advices. These people in the art group are a mix of everything that a Twitter artist can do wrong, and it is hideous of how they can still keep going like this. But anyways, I hope most of you have learned something from this. This has been something I wanted to talk about for quite a while now, and it's a topic that's very important to most artists out there. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope I see you.
Are you trying to talk certain bullshit to get the Twitter art community to the way you want it to be?
No? What are you, fucking gay?
Well, I mean, the last 2 minutes you just talked about Twitter artists doing all this shit for cloud. Maybe you're jealous?
Excuse me for a second, guys. Hold on.